What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind, and today we will be looking at what has ruined Doctor Who. So without further ado, let's get into it. So there was no doubt that Doctor Who went under some very massive changes in 2017, because not only was Peter Capaldi departing from his role as the Doctor, however, Stephen Moffat, the head writer and executive producer at the time, and the majority of the production staff were also moving on. Now, a change like this hadn't occurred since 2010, when of course Russell T Davies left and Stephen Moffat took over. So this was a big change, and I think whenever a big change like this happens, Doctor Who fans in particular are very concerned about whether this is going to be a good decision and will actually benefit the programme, or it will just be a gamble which won't pay off and then Doctor Who will get cancelled. So I think there was a lot of fear, however, quite a lot of upbeat people as well who thought maybe this would be a good idea. And when it was announced Chris Chibnall would be taken over as head writer and executive producer, he seemed to have a clear 5-year plan. He kept talking about this plan he had and how he weren't going to make any changes, and he knew exactly what direction he was going in. And I thought, even though Chris Chibnall was not necessarily the strongest writer who's ever written for Doctor Who, I thought maybe as a head writer and overseeing more talented writers writing individual episodes, he might be good. He might know exactly what direction he wants to take the show in. And of course, one of the biggest changes occurred during Doctor Who when Chris Chibnall was in charge, and that was changing the Doctor's gender, so we got a female Doctor for the first time. In my opinion, it was only a matter of time until this happened, especially as Stephen Moffat had made it so that the Doctor could be male and female, so it didn't really surprise me that it was going to happen. However, to start off with, when Jodie Whittaker was announced as the Doctor, I was upbeat about it. I thought, you know what, maybe this will be a good decision. If she's a good actor and understands the role, then it could be a move which paid off. Now, a couple of years down the line, when we've had 2 series starring Jodie Whittaker and with Chris Chibnall as executive producer, Series 11 and Series 12, I think it's time to look back on exactly why this gamble, in my personal opinion, has not paid off, and what I think is going to happen to Doctor Who in the future. So let's get on with that right now. So first off, I thought I would go through some viewing figures for Doctor Who since the 2005 revival, because I think that it is important to understand exactly how popular a show is, because that's based on its viewing figures, how many people actually tune in to watch the show and watch it on demand and all of that. So I think it's very interesting when you look at the viewing figures for Doctor Who to see how popular it has been at different points since its revival. Now, in 2005, which is of course the year when Doctor Who returned with Christopher Eccleston and Russell T Davies, it managed to get 8.8 million views in an average, which is very strong for a new show to get that much, because that showed Doctor Who was back on top again. It was getting strong views and they were staying to watch the programme. Now, by 2009, which was of course the final year in which David Tennant portrayed the Doctor and you had all of the Doctor Who specials, it was managing to get 10.70 million viewers. Now, that is significant, because that shows Doctor Who at the height since its revival. Many people often talk about the golden age with David Tennant in the role of the Doctor, and near the end of his tenure, he was getting very strong views tuning in to watch Doctor Who. Now, by 2017, which was of course the end of Peter Capaldi's era, Doctor Who was getting around an average viewer duration of 5.64 million viewers. Now this, when you look at what was happening in 2009 with over 10 million viewers, this is a very significant drop in how many viewers are tuning in to watch the programme on average. And it was very clear that they needed to do something in order to increase viewership again, to get people watching Doctor Who again. So it made sense bringing in Chris Chibnall and kind of regenerating the show with Jodie Whittaker and trying to get new viewers and a new fan base developed around Jodie Whittaker. Of course, without forgetting the old fan base, because you can never forget the old fan base, because they're the ones who watch your programme no matter what. And many will say it paid off at first, because in 2018, when Series 11 was released, an average viewer of 7.96 million viewers. So you could say that at first the gamble paid off because the ratings were going up and Doctor Who appeared. It was getting talked about again. Loads more people were watching it. I remember watching the first Jodie Whittaker episode, and I think it had like over 10 million viewers watching the programme for that first episode, which of course I wasn't surprised at because it was a very historic moment. It was the first female Doctor, so I think even people who didn't really like the idea of a female Doctor were going to watch it anyway just to see what's happened and whether the move has paid off or not. However, I always remember thinking, right, they've got loads of viewers watching Doctor Who now. The main thing is, can you keep those viewers invested so that they will continue watching the programme in the years to come? And now we go to 2020, which was of course earlier this year. Doctor Who Series 12 was released, and you got an average level of viewers of 5.40 million viewers. Now that is quite a drop from 2018, and it is actually slightly lower than what Peter Capaldi was getting in 2017, which many people say in 2017 was not a good year for Doctor Who in terms of viewers. So if Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall were supposed to make a massive impact on Doctor Who and kind of get loads of viewers in again, while it has seemed to have worked short term, in the long term, you seem to be drawing in less viewers than you were during Peter Capaldi's era. Now, why is that? Well, there are multiple reasons why, and I'm going to talk about a few right now. So I think the main thing people will say about this current era of Doctor Who is that the writing is not very strong and probably the weakest part, and I have to agree with them because of course what Chris Chibnall did was he got rid of the majority of the writing staff which had been writing for Doctor Who since the revival and replaced them with young and fresh writers who had never really written for sci-fi before, which I thought, okay, if you want to employ new writing talent from a different generation in order to appeal to new viewers, then yes, that's great, go ahead. However, you should have a variety. If you're going to employ 5 new writers who don't have a lot of experience with sci-fi, then why not have them co-write scripts first with more experienced writers who have written for Doctor Who before? That's what I never understood about this method Chris Chibnall has used, because you've got a bunch of writers writing for Doctor Who have never really done sci-fi before. A lot of them have worked on soaps and small-time dramas and things like that. So don't be surprised if you employ soap writers, you're going to get a show which is written like a soap, because that's the kind of writer you have employed to do that. So a show like Doctor Who, which is supposed to be this big sci-fi, this big sci-fi primetime slot on TV, you should employ writers who understand Doctor Who, have grown up with Doctor Who, and know how to write for Doctor Who. Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat were both massive Doctor Who fans, and they knew exactly how to write for the character. I'm not denying Chris Chibnall isn't a Doctor Who fan, because he clearly is. However, I think he's got loads of writers around him who don't really understand Doctor Who, have never really written, not only for the Doctor, however, for sci-fi before. So you won't be surprised if you get a writing team which is very inexperienced and doesn't really understand how to write for Doctor Who. So then you get a show which doesn't really feel like Doctor Who, because it's not being written by people who know how to write for Doctor Who. So that, I think, explains partly why viewers are starting to switch off the TV. Because for a lot of long-term viewers, especially fans who have watched it before the revival in 2005, have grown up with Doctor Who, they think that the show, the current era of Doctor Who with Jodie Whittaker, is just not Doctor Who, because of course you haven't got experienced writers writing for it. Another reason for Doctor Who's decline in recent years is Jodie Whittaker's casting in the role of the Doctor. Now, I'm not denying that Jodie Whittaker is not a good actor, and I'm also not just some sexist pig who's upset because the Doctor's being portrayed by a female. I didn't care that the Doctor was portrayed as a female. As long as they were portrayed well and were true to the character, then I was fine. However, a couple of years into the role, Jodie Whittaker still doesn't seem to have a personality for her Doctor. She doesn't seem to be confident in her portrayal of the Doctor. Now, when you look at David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, by the end of their first episode, you knew clearly what their Doctor was and how they would react in the majority of situations. With Jodie Whittaker, she's had 2 series, and I'm still wondering how she would react in certain situations, because I personally don't believe that Jodie Whittaker was right for the role of the Doctor. I just don't think she has the personality to portray the Doctor on screen. Instead, she seems to be trying to copy David Tennant and Matt Smith, which of course doesn't work. In order to play the role of the Doctor, you need to have a personality, because the Doctor is not a character. Each actor makes the Doctor their own. Jodie Whittaker hasn't made the Doctor stand out in my mind. I can't see her on screen and say, that is the 13th Doctor. And I'm very happy with that, because she just seems to be kind of a mashup of different Doctors and kind of put there. And the only thing which makes her different is that she's female, which, no offense, I didn't really care about. I want her to be remembered for her personality rather than just being a female. However, 2 series down the line, she's still just the female Doctor. She has made no progress on giving her Doctor a clear personality and developing her character. And whether that's the writer's fault or Jodie Whittaker's performance in the role, it still stands that the 13th Doctor doesn't really have a clear character yet. So the last thing I'm going to talk about Doctor Who is what will happen to Doctor Who in the future. Now, it's very clear that the modern era Doctor Who, the more PC friendly, women are strong, men are weak, which Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker obviously love to do, has not worked, because the viewing figures are at their lowest point since the 2005 revival, and even the older fans which have stuck with the show through cancellations and revivals and basically watched the show no matter what has happened, are starting to leave the show. And trust me, a show needs its core viewers. It needs those old fans who watch the show no matter what. With them now gone, viewing figures could get even worse. So if they continue with this, and of course, as we know, this era does have its fans, I'm not denying that. However, in the long term, if they continue with Chris Chibnall's 5-year plan and with Jodie Whittaker in the main role, I can see the show getting cancelled. Because I just don't think that, even though it has its fans, it does not have enough fans for the BBC to continue making the show. I think what needs to happen is Chris Chibnall needs to leave. A new executive producer needs to be brought on and change the show, take it more back to its roots, back to more traditional Doctor Who. They need to get rid of Jodie Whittaker and replace it with a new Doctor, male or female, as long as they are a good actor who loves the role of the Doctor and who makes it their own, then that would be fine. And then they can start recovering from this and get Doctor Who's viewing figures back up again. I would love to see Doctor Who return to what it had with David Tennant when you were getting over 10 million views. But you need to change the course. And I think that's the main thing here. Now, some people will probably watch this video and just consider me a sexist and someone who, you know, is just not PC and can't take the fact that a female is playing the role of the Doctor. That is not true. I was very supportive of a female playing the role of the Doctor. I don't think the gender matters that much. My main problem is how it has been executed and how some of them in the higher up in the production team and even members of the cast working for Doctor Who seem to not care what the fans really want. And they just seem to say, oh, well, all you sexist idiots that used to watch Doctor Who, we don't need you anymore. Let's just hope things improve, because otherwise Doctor Who will be cancelled. And when it is, I suppose me and so many others like me will be able to say we told you so. So thanks for watching, guys. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future. I'm sorry if I look like I'm sweating during this video. It's because it's really hot at the moment. So I do apologise about that. And I hope to see you in another one. See ya!